For 18 years, I thought my wife was my home, until she asked for permission to cheat. That night I realized that she was a stranger, and I was the one who would make her regret it. Chicago, a rainy evening. Alex sat in his dimly lit studio, the soft hum of jazz playing in the background as he sketched designs for his latest project. He had always found comfort in his work, in the precision of lines and angles, in the certainty of structure. But that night, nothing felt certain. The sound of soft footsteps behind him made him pause. He turned to see Lauren standing in the doorway, her arms crossed, fingers playing with the chain around her neck, a nervous habit he had learned to read over the years. "Can we talk?" Her voice was steady, but he caught the hesitation beneath it. He put down his pencil, studying her expression. There was something different in her eyes, something distant. "Of course. What's wrong?" She took a deep breath. "I need something from you, and I need you to listen before you react." Alex's stomach tightened. "Okay." Lauren hesitated, then said, "I need a hall pass." Silence filled the space between them. The rain outside seemed to grow louder. Alex blinked, trying to process what she had just said. "A what?" His voice came out flat. "A hall pass," she repeated, shifting on her feet. "One night with someone else. No lies, no secrets. Just one night." Alex felt the world tilt. He sat back in his chair, crossing his arms as a cold sensation spread through his chest. "Why?" She swallowed, her fingers still toying with the chain. "After everything that happened with my health, I've been thinking a lot about my life, about what I've missed. I've only ever been with you, Alex, and I don't want to die with regrets." He let out a slow breath, his jaw clenching. "And sleeping with another man is what you think you need to live without regrets?" She winced but nodded. "It's not just about that. It's about feeling free, experiencing something different. Just once. And then I'll come back, and we can move on." He let out a bitter laugh. "Move on? Like it never happened." She met his gaze, her determination unwavering. "I love you. This doesn't change that." He stared at her, trying to recognize the woman he had built a life with. "And what if I say no?" She exhaled, as if exhausted. "Then I'll resent you for the rest of my life." There it was. The ultimatum. Either he agreed, or he became the villain in his own marriage. His hands curled into fists, but he kept his voice even. "Who is he?" She flinched, but didn't look away. "Someone from work. Greg. He's leaving the company soon. It's the perfect opportunity." The word perfect made his stomach churn. "You've always been attracted to him, haven't you?" She hesitated before nodding. "There was always something there, but I never acted on it. Not until now." He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "And that makes it better? That you waited until now to drop this on me?" She didn't answer. He ran a hand over his face, his mind racing. "And you think after this, after you sleep with another man, we'll just go back to normal?" "I think we can move past it," she said carefully. He shook his head. "You don't understand, do you? The moment you walk into that hotel room, you've already ended our marriage." She exhaled, her expression pleading. "Alex, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "You want to cheat? Fine, but don't expect me to be here when you get back." Her brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" He met her gaze, letting his fury settle behind his eyes. "It means you're making your choice, and I'm making mine." She parted her lips as if to argue, but he didn't give her the chance. He walked past her, grabbing his coat, his mind already forming a plan. That night, Alex sat in his car across the street from the bar where her office party was being held. He didn't want to be that guy, the one spying on his wife, but he had to see it for himself. He needed to know if she would really go through with it. People trickled out of the bar, laughing and stumbling into cabs. Then he saw her. Lauren. She looked around quickly, her eyes scanning the street before locking onto someone. A man stepped out, a short, overweight, bald man in his late 40s. Greg. This was him. Alex had expected someone younger, someone charming, someone who would make it worth throwing away a marriage. But this was the man she was willing to destroy their life for. His stomach twisted as he watched her approach Greg, take his hand, and smile without hesitation. Then they turned and disappeared into a hotel. Something inside Alex snapped. He wasn't going to let this slide. If she wanted betrayal, he would give her a feast. The next morning, he woke up with a plan. Alex sat at the kitchen table, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air as he stared at his phone. He had spent the night replaying the image of Lauren disappearing into that hotel, her hand in Greg's, her smile soft, inviting. He should have felt pain, but all he felt was a cold, calculated fury. He had loved her, trusted her, built a life with her, and she had thrown it all away for a man who didn't even measure up. Fine. If she wanted freedom, he would give it to her. He scrolled through his contacts and dialed his lawyer. Tom, I need to start the divorce process. Today. There was a pause. Alex, are you sure? This is a big step. I'm sure. His voice was steel. She made her choice. Now I'm making mine. After ending the call, he walked upstairs to their bedroom. Their pictures still hung on the walls, smiling reminders of a life that no longer existed. He moved through the room methodically, taking down the frames, pulling out her clothes, emptying drawers. By the time he was done, every trace of Lauren had been erased from their bedroom. He carried her things to the guest room, leaving them in neat piles. She would come home and see for herself, a visual confirmation that she no longer belonged here. That afternoon, he received a message from Lauren. Working late. Don't wait up. A bitter smile tugged at his lips. She was still lying, still pretending. Did she really think he was that blind? He ignored the message and went about his day, ensuring that by the time she returned, the house itself would deliver the first blow. When she walked in just after midnight, her hair slightly disheveled, her makeup faded, Alex was already seated at the dining table, sipping his coffee, the newspaper spread out in front of him. She hesitated in the doorway, her eyes scanning the room. The first sign of trouble was the missing wedding photo that had once sat on the mantel. Her brows furrowed, her gaze shifting toward the staircase. She saw the guest room door slightly open, a suitcase sitting just outside. Alex, she started, stepping forward. What's going on? He turned the page of his newspaper, not even looking at her. I think you already know. Silence. Then a slow, sharp inhale. You're overreacting. He let out a humorless chuckle, finally meeting her gaze. Am I? She walked closer, her eyes wide with disbelief. It was just one night, Alex. It didn't mean anything. He placed his coffee cup down carefully. It meant everything. Her lips parted, her confidence faltering. I love you. That hasn't changed. No, Loudon. You love the comfort, the stability, the security I provided. But that wasn't enough, was it? She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. He leaned back, studying her. You have until the end of the week to move out. Her face crumpled. You're kicking me out? I'm making sure you get exactly what you asked for. Her breathing hitched. Alex, we can fix this. You shattered us the moment you walked into that hotel, he said coldly. There's no fixing this. She stared at him, her hands trembling, her mind scrambling for a way to regain control. But Alex wasn't the same man she had left behind when she stepped into another man's bed. He was done being the fool. As she stood there in stunned silence, he stood up, brushing past her without another word. This was just the beginning. Lauren spent the next few days walking through the house like a ghost, trying to reach him, trying to get him to talk. But Alex had already moved forward. His lawyer was handling the legal side, and he had cut off all unnecessary conversations with her. The more she tried, the more desperate she became. Then came the next move. She called her friends. Or, at least, the ones who had encouraged her decision. It didn't take long before Alex came home one evening to an ambush. Lauren and 3 of her closest friends were sitting in the living room, their expressions tense, their eyes filled with judgment. Alex, one of them started, don't you think you're being too harsh? Another one scoffed. She made a mistake, not a crime. A third chimed in, at least she told you. She could have lied. He let them speak, watching as Lauren sat there, quiet but hopeful, as if their words would change his mind. When they were done, he turned to her. Is there anyone else you forgot to invite? She stiffened. I just thought. You thought that if you gathered a pity party, I'd magically forget what you did? The silence was suffocating. One of the women hesitated. She's been through a lot, Alex. You should be more understanding. His jaw clenched. So, if your husband cheats on you, you'll show him the same understanding you expect from me? The room fell deathly quiet. The friends exchanged awkward glances before one by one they left. As soon as the door shut, Lauren broke down, sobbing. But Alex wasn't moved. Not anymore. Lauren refused to leave without a fight. She begged, she pleaded, she promised to fix things. And when none of that worked, she turned on him. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You're throwing away everything." He stared at her coldly. "No, Lauren. You did." She stormed upstairs. The next day, she made her final move. She called their daughter. Bella's voice trembled over the phone. "Dad, Mom told me you're kicking her out." "Why? What's going on?" Alex exhaled, gripping the edge of the counter. He had known this moment would come. Lauren wouldn't go down without a fight, and now she was using their daughter as a weapon. "She told you everything?" he asked carefully. "Not everything," Bella admitted. "Just that you're mad at her, that you're ending the marriage, but she didn't say why." Silence stretched between them. Should he tell her? Should he burden his 17-year-old daughter with the truth? But then he realized she deserved to know. "Your mother cheated on me," he said flatly. "She didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. And now she has to live with it." Bella's sharp inhale was audible through the phone. She what? She slept with another man," he continued, his voice void of emotion. "And she expected me to be okay with it." More silence. Then a quiet, broken whisper. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, sweetheart. Just know that I love you, and I will always be here for you." He heard her swallow hard. "I need to go." The line went dead. Alex set the phone down, rubbing a hand over his face. He knew Bella would need time to process. But one thing was clear. Lauren had lost her strongest ally. When she came downstairs that evening, her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. "You told her," she accused. "She deserved to know. You poisoned her against me," she snapped, her voice breaking. "No, Lauren. You did it yourself the moment you walked into that hotel room." Her breath hitched. "I was scared." "Scared of what? Missing out on mediocre sex with a bald accountant?" She gasped. He smiled coldly. "Yeah, I saw him." Her face drained of color. You saw? I followed you," he confirmed. "I watched you walk into that hotel, hand in hand with him." She clamped a hand over her mouth, horror written all over her face. "Tell me, Lauren," he continued, voice dripping with ice. "Was it worth it?" She sobbed, and he enjoyed every second of it. But Lauren wasn't done fighting. She refused to leave, walking around the house like a ghost, desperately trying to mend what was already broken beyond repair. But Alex wasn't interested in fixing anything. He was interested in revenge. And so, he set up a meeting with Greg's wife. Her name was Rachel, and she had no idea what her husband had been up to. Until now, they met at a small cafe. Rachel was a quiet woman, well put together, but she looked exhausted, like someone who had spent years pretending everything was fine. Alex placed a manila folder in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "Proof," he said simply. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were photos, screenshots, even a hotel receipt. Her face twisted in horror. "No," she whispered. "Not my husband. Not after everything he did." Alex interrupted. And Lauren was his willing partner. She covered her mouth, eyes welling with tears. He let the silence stretch before speaking again. "I thought you deserved to know." Rachel inhaled sharply, straightening. "Thank you." Then her expression darkened. "I hope he burns for this." Alex smiled. "So do I." The fallout was swift. Rachel confronted Greg that same night. From what Alex heard, she threw his clothes onto the front lawn and told him he was sleeping in his car. Meanwhile, the office was buzzing with gossip. Lauren walked in that morning looking like a wreck, and her lover refused to even look at her. He had his own mess to clean up. And Lauren? She had nothing. Her marriage, over. Her reputation, shattered. Her affair, a disaster. And Alex? He was just getting started. Alex knew Lauren wasn't the type to give up easily. She had lost everything. Her marriage, her reputation, even the man she had risked it all for. But she wasn't done fighting, and he expected that. He came home one evening to find her waiting for him, sitting on the couch, her hands clasped together as if she were in silent prayer. "Alex, please," she whispered as soon as he stepped inside. "Can we at least talk?" He set his keys on the table and crossed his arms, staring at her with cold indifference. You didn't want to talk when you were sneaking around with Greg. Why now? She flinched, fresh tears pooling in her eyes. I wasn't thinking. No, Lauren, you were thinking just fine, he said evenly. You thought about it when you undressed for him, when you kissed him, when you let him touch you. You thought about it every step of the way. You just never thought you'd get caught. She let out a choked sob, but Alex felt nothing. I'll do anything, she pleaded. Anything to fix this. He tilted his head, pretending to consider it. Anything, she nodded eagerly, a flicker of hope crossing her face. Yes, just tell me what I need to do. He leaned in slightly, voice low and deliberate. Leave. The color drained from her face. What? Pack your things, find a new place, and never come back. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to argue, but she saw the finality in his eyes. You can't mean that. Ido. The next few days were filled with silence. She lingered around the house, hoping for a change of heart that never came. And then she made her final move. She reached out to their daughter. Alex was in his office when his phone rang. He saw Bella's name flash on the screen and sighed before answering. Dad, Mom told me you won't even speak to her, that you're forcing her out. She also told you why? He asked. A pause. Not exactly. She cheated, Bella. She betrayed me, our family. And now she has to deal with the consequences. The silence stretched. I don't know how to handle this. You don't have to. Just know that I love you, and I will always be here for you. I love you too, Dad, she whispered. I just need time. When Lauren realized even Bella wasn't going to fight for her, she finally started packing. But she refused to go quietly. One night, Alex came home to find her and a group of their mutual friends waiting for him in the living room. Alex, we need to talk, one of them, Sandra, said. Lauren told us everything. We think you're being too harsh. He smirked. Oh, and what exactly did she tell you? That she made a mistake, another friend added. That she regrets it more than anything. Shouldn't that count for something? At least she was honest, Sandra chimed in. She could have lied. He let out a humorless laugh. So let me get this straight. You're all here to convince me to forgive the woman who humiliated me? The woman who destroyed our family? The women exchanged uneasy glances. She's been through a lot, Alex. Maybe try to be more understanding. He clenched his jaw, then looked directly at Sandra. So if your husband cheats on you, I assume you'll show him the same understanding? Sandra stiffened, and the room fell into uncomfortable silence. One by one, they started making excuses and leaving. When the last one walked out, Lauren turned to him, her expression desperate. You're really going to let this happen? You already let it happen, Lauren. I'm just making sure you live with the outcome. That was the last real conversation they had. 2 days later, she was gone. Alex should have felt relief, but he wasn't done yet. He had one final step to take. He reached out to Greg's wife, Rachel, again. I thought you'd like to know, he said when she picked up. Lauren is officially out of my life. Hope things are going just as badly for your husband. Rachel let out a humorless chuckle. He's miserable, sleeping on his friend's couch. I took the house, the car, and most of our savings. He didn't see it coming. Alex smiled. Good. That means we both won. I suppose we did. There was a pause before she added, You know, if you ever want to grab a drink and celebrate, let me know. Alex considered it for a moment before replying, I just might take you up on that. He hung up, feeling lighter than he had in months. He was free. And Lauren? She was nothing but a mistake he had finally erased. Lauren had always been the type of woman who believed she could talk her way out of anything. If she cried hard enough, begged long enough, surely she could make things right. But for the first time in her life, her words meant nothing. No one was listening. She wasn't my problem anymore, and that realization broke her. Mutual friends told me she had stopped going out, spent weeks locked in her apartment, barely speaking to anyone. No social media posts, no girls' nights, no smug little pictures of herself pretending she was living her best life. Because there was nothing left to pretend. She had lost everything, and I wasn't done watching her lose more. The divorce was finalized, but Lauren was still holding on to hope. She thought she could negotiate, that maybe if she worked on herself, I'd let her back in. But when she got the settlement papers, she realized just how wrong she was. The house mine, the savings protected, alimony, not a chance. Her reputation, ruined. She walked away with nothing because in the eyes of the law, she wasn't the victim. She was the cheater. She had thrown away 18 years for one night, and now she had nothing to show for it. If Lauren thought the legal loss was bad, she hadn't seen anything yet. Because our daughter, Bella, wasn't stupid and she wasn't forgiving. One night, Lauren tried to force a conversation with her, tried to explain, tried to justify, and you know what Bella said? "Mom, if Dad had cheated on you, would you have forgiven him?" Lauren's mouth opened, but she had no answer. Because the truth was painfully obvious, she would have burned me to the ground. And now she was expecting mercy. She didn't get it. The best revenge? Success. Happiness. Peace. And that's exactly what I found. I thrived without her. I hit the gym. Revenge body? Check. I reconnected with old friends. I started dating again. Was it easy? No, but it was better. Lauren, however, was still in denial. She thought that eventually I'd cool down, that I'd come to my senses, that we'd fix this. She was wrong, because I was already moving on. And then I met her. Her name was Claire. Smart, confident, gorgeous. The kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it. We met by chance, nothing serious at first. But as weeks passed, she became something more. And Lauren? She found out. She saw us at a restaurant, saw me smiling, laughing, happy. And for the first time since the divorce, she snapped. She stormed up to our table, her voice shaking. "Who is this?" Claire arched a brow. "His date." Lauren turned to me, desperate. "Alex, you can't." I leaned back, smirking. "Oh, but I can." She trembled, rage and heartbreak battling in her eyes. "So you're just replacing me?" I shrugged. "You replaced me first." She opened her mouth, but she had nothing left to say. She had lost, and she knew it. 2 nights later, she showed up at my house again. This time, she wasn't angry. She was broken. "Alex, please," she whispered, eyes red-rimmed. "I don't know how to be without you." I sighed. "That sounds like a you problem." She reached for my hand. "I'll do anything. Anything to fix this." I looked down at her fingers. The same hand that once wore my wedding ring. The same hand that touched another man. I pulled away. "I already fixed it," I said. "I divorced you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please, Alex, just give me a chance." I tilted my head. "Like the chance you gave me when you climbed into his bed." She flinched. "I can't go back," I said softly. "And neither can you." She shook her head, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. "So that's it." I nodded. "That's it." And then, for the last time, I shut the door on her. Mutual friends told me that Lauren spiraled. The reality of what she had done, of what she had lost, finally hit her. She started therapy, became withdrawn, stopped posting her usual self-righteous nonsense online. She was finally facing herself. And me? I never looked back. Lauren had always been the kind of woman who believed she could manipulate her way through life. That if she cried hard enough, if she played the victim well enough, people would forgive her. But for the first time, her words had no power. She wasn't my problem anymore. And that destroyed her. One day, I passed by her at a cafe. She looked small, tired, diminished. She saw me, and in that split second I saw it in her eyes. Regret, pain, a silent plea. I just smiled and walked away. Because she wasn't worth my time anymore. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. Lauren learned too late that some betrayals can't be undone. That some choices have consequences. And that the worst pain is knowing you destroyed yourself. As for me, I moved on, built a better life, found real love. And Lauren? She was nothing more than a lesson, a memory, a warning. And that was the perfect revenge.